Hello there folks, back again for another video. In this one we're going to be looking through the Chaos Battletome for the Skaven. So this was the first of the Battletomes that has come out for the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, 4th edition. Since I've been really excited about the Mortal Realms over the last little while, I thought I would start to dive into some of the other factions beyond just the Stormcast Eternals and the Fyreslayers, which are the factions that I create. And so I thought I'd dive in and put together a couple of videos about the Skaven and these new Battletomes in general. So classic Battletome in pretty much every regard. It has plenty of lore in there, alongside some really nice stuff for the rules, and Path to Glory and all that kind of good stuff in there as well. I'm going to kind of break down these videos into a sort of lore summary chat, alongside one looking at the rules in general for the armies, and then maybe one for Path to Glory, or I might just keep that as part of the rules video. We'll see. But yeah, so this is the Chaos Battletome for the Skaven, and it starts off in typical fashion with some really nice artwork as always, and miniature photography throughout. One of the nice things about this new edition of the game, and it's something that I mentioned during my previous chats where I looked at the core rulebook and stuff, is that they're starting to tell interesting stories about the background of the Skaven through the eyes of others in the Mortal Realms. So once again, Callus and Toll take center stage, and that's sort of like in the opening story that you get for the Skaven as part of this particular edition of the rules, effectively. The other thing that's really nice about this is that I've been a fan of Warhammer for a really long time, and I've really enjoyed Warhammer in its many guises, including obviously in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and it's always been fascinating looking at things like the Skaven. But one of the nice things about this is that it's really taken time to dive in and explore the lore and the background of the Skaven as part of this particular period of the Mortal Realms. So you've got some really nice stuff in here that sort of tells the story up until this point, which is really handy. And again, one of the nice things about it is these big gatefold or centerfold, however you want to say it, maps of the world as it is. So you've got the slightly larger one of Akshi there, and then you can sort of zoom in a little bit more on the Nor and see how it affects the current state of the narrative around Embergard, which is obviously going to be popping up in Warhammer Underworlds fairly soon, alongside pretty much every other city, no doubt, that's going to be attacked by the Skaven over the course of the next little while. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this is that it started to delve into the essence of the Skaven now that they're part of the Chaos Pantheon. So for those who didn't know, the Skaven are now part of the cabal of chaos gods. So alongside Khorne, Nurgle, Slanesh, and Tzeentch, you've also got the Skaven's Horned Rat, who is now part of this little collective. And one of the things that's really nice about it is that they've kind of explained how the Horned Rat grows in power, because all of the chaos gods draw on a particular element of humanity in order to sort of grow and change and influence others, and develop their armies and build up effectively over time. So, for example, Khorne obviously thrives on bloodshed and murder and dismay and destruction and dismay. Nurgle on life and blight and festering souls and all that kind of thing. And the interesting thing with the Horned Rat is that they draw power from the devious nature of humanity. So if you've ever done something selfish in the Mortal Realms, then that starts to feed the Horned Rat. If you've ever been desperate on the battlefield and you've left your friends and your allies behind so that you can survive, that feeds the Horned Rat. And what I've found is really fascinating, and you see it in some of the stories that you get in this book during this lore section, is that they've really started to explore how the Horned Rat has started to influence humanity and there's actually been a fair few instances throughout of humans mentioning the Horned God as a deity and maybe even worshipping it, which I think is quite nice. So they've kind of shown how the Horned Rat has managed to infiltrate all layers of society. And it's not just the Skaven, although primarily it is, but it's not just the Skaven who are looking to the Horned Rat and the power that it can offer, which I think is quite cool. The other thing that's really nice is that it starts to break down Skaven society in a lot of detail. So you have the things like the Council of 13. It talks about how a particular clan might be made up. It explores a little bit about the structure of it all in terms of Grey Seers and the way that all builds up, and sort of who's at the top and who's not. A lot of the focus also swings to the various clans. So you've got some really nice breakdowns of Clan Scryer there, Clan Moulder, which is probably one of my favourites, I think, with all the rat ogres and stuff. Clan Pestilens, so that's your sort of festering plague monks and the like, and then Clan Eshin. More on Clan Eshin a little bit later when we start to look at rules. But yeah, so they've broken down each of the different ones there, as well as Clan Verminus, which I think is further in front of here. There you go, Clan Verminus, who is your slightly more militaristic collective or clan within Skavendom, and of course they all kind of work together anyway, which is quite fun. But yeah, so there's also like a breakdown of the history of the Skaven through the mortal realms, so it explores how they came to be and sort of how they've developed over time and sort of what moments they've been involved in. There's actually quite a lot of interesting plots that the Skaven have had their sort of skittering fingers involved in, including, of course, the Vermin Doom itself, but also things like the Shaiish Nadir, or the Nadir Shaiish, whichever one it is, which was caused by Nagash and his strange spell that he tried to cast from his Black Pyramid, which was infiltrated by Clan Eshin. I thought that there's a really nice one here. So the Foul Bounty storyline, where the Ossiarchs came seeking bones for their tithe, and so Clan Pestilens gave them a bunch of them. Sure, fantastic, but they were all infected bones, and so they slowly dissolved the necropolis that the Ossiarchs had built, which I thought was really cool. And there's lots of stuff in here that'll really make you start to appreciate Skaven as a faction and get you interested in painting them. I know that I kind of had my Skaven from the Skaven type box set, or more or less sitting unpainted really for the last little while, the last couple of months, but this has really made me want to dive in and start painting them again. So I've actually worked through a few more of my clan rats and stuff recently, getting them all done with a contrast method and stuff. So it's a really inspiring little collection of stuff and it's very in-depth lore. Like, obviously I really liked the codexes of old, which were, you know, thin and cheap and all that kind of thing, and you could pick them up, and it had a nice section of lore in there, but then kind of like threw it over to the rules effectively. While these Battletomes obviously are way more expensive, and I would still probably suggest that you try and find lore videos online to watch and rules videos online and all that kind of thing, I think that if you are a collector, I think they do have a purpose. So obviously bear that in mind when you come to dive in. I also think that they've put a lot of effort, seemingly anyway, from this book. We'll have a look when we get to things like the Stormcast and the Slaves to Darkness later on down the line. But they seem to have put in a lot more effort to kind of build up the hobby side of things as well. So there's this really nice one here, which is all about the Norhorde, which is the kind of grand clan that is doing a lot of the battling at the moment and is forefront of things. And they're so driven by their hunger almost that they have... They put metal masks over their faces so they can't eat their kin as they're riding into battle. And so you actually get a little bit of a conversion thing here, which shows off how to make a particular Claw Lord using their full face helm rather than it just being just your regular one, as you can see, which I think is a really nice little thing that they didn't necessarily have to put in, but it's the kind of stuff that you want them to do because it helps push forward that idea that there's more depth to the Force than just what you see when it comes to the box art and stuff like that. There's also the breakdowns of all the big characters as well. So Vizek Scour's in here as well. So he's like the big new, effectively think of him as a greater demon almost for the Skaven, and the Vermin Kings as well. So these are the classic miniatures that have been out for a while. You would have seen them during the end times if you were a Skaven fan. They're back in action as well, and you can see them showing off there. in all their glorious style. I was really happy to see that Thanquol managed to get back into the book in kind of like a major way. He actually has an army of renown, which we'll look at in the rules video. But I just thought it was really fun seeing that he got an entry alongside Bone Ripper, of course, as well. And you have some Fire Slayers in there battling Thanquol, which makes sense considering his past. I really would have liked to see them do something with Gotrek and Thanquol in the Mortal Realms, because obviously Gotrek is back, so why wouldn't he have come face to face with Thanquol at some point or another anyway? But I know obviously they've done some interesting stuff in the stories for him and their duo, but it would be nice to see Gotrek getting to fight against Thanquol in the future as part of some narrative or whatever. But yeah, interesting stuff on the Grey Seers, so it breaks them down. There's a really in-depth little bit of lore on a lot of the stuff for Clan Scryer, because that was much more of the focus of the latest release. So you got to see a lot more of the new weapons, like the Warlock, the Galvaneer, and the Bombardier there as well, who actually existed before, but things like the Warlock Engineer too. And obviously the Storm Fiends, which you would have seen during the end times. There's some great stuff here about warp lightning cannons and all that kind of thing, and like powering them up and blasting things. And I really like all the little box out lore that you get in here. I'd like there to be more stories, I think. I guess these kind of counter stories, but I'd like more of this kind of narrative stuff in there, just to kind of add some more flavor and delve into a little bit more of the detail of the world. But Acolyte Globadiers, the regular weapons batteries, as you can see, lots of Scryer stuff. The rattling warp blasters and all that kind of thing, doom flares, warp grinders, everything, and their mums is packing. A little bit on the Clan's Pestilence. It's still a real shame, I think, that the Plague Monks didn't get an update. I guess the kits still kind of work. They're not as bad as the old Clan Rats and Eshin, as we'll see. But a really nice little breakdown on how they work as well. So it's good that they're not forgotten. All elements of the Skaven force are actually in here, which is good. Kritok is a fascinating character. He's like an old wizened Skaven almost, who's maybe a little bit past his best, but he's actually really cunning. And he has this really fun bit of backstory where he kind of lets Skaven live. He doesn't just throw them into the jaws of defeat and then move on. Although he will do that eventually, but he does it in such a way so that he can get the most out of his Skaven, and it kind of empowers them to fight more for him. And he's actually driven by the Doomfang, which is his weapon, which is really cool, because it kind of reminds me of the Fell Blade and stuff that they used to have. And this is a blade that has got a Vermin Lord trapped inside it, and he now wages with the Vermin Lord, who can give him certain benefits in combat, and if he does, then time gets taken off his sentence, which I think is a really nice little bonus there. Claw Lords are there as well. Storm Vermin, which are looking absolutely fantastic. Really nice new miniatures for the Storm Vermin there. Very good for those people who want to make a martial force, and your regular new Clan Rats, which is good to see. The Master Molders, so it's looking into all the new stuff around the Clan Molder. And they do have some really lovely new miniatures as well, I've got to say. There's some really nice characterful stuff for the Skaven. So if you're a collector and a painter, they're really fun. I would also recommend painting a lot of this stuff with contrast, because you can do some really fun stuff with contrast without worrying too much about all the details. It all sort of really pops if you can get it all to come together really nicely. Rat Ogres, still a favourite, and glad to see they're there, and the Hell Pit Abomination. And then you have wonderful new painted elements here as well. Not too much on the guide front, I would say, from this point onwards, but it's kind of fun, inspirational stuff, I suppose you'd say. Now, Clan Eshin, I mean, they still get a good couple of pages of lore, kind of, and they are kind of covered, but considering that the Skaven got such a massive update, and they pretty much went back and revisited all the models that desperately needed an update, but then they left these guys. These are still the Skaven that you would have got in the old Mordheim box that went up against the human mercenaries back during the day. They are so old and so tiny and so bad compared to the new miniatures that you get for Eshin that you would have found in, well, individual releases and also in the likes of Underworld and stuff as well. So I just cannot believe that they put those back in. It boggles my mind that they're here. But anyway, it's nice to see that Eshin are catered for. And there's a really fun, this one's a really fun story there as well. So I'll leave you to read that one at some point. But yeah, you also have all of their different spells and things that they've covered. And that's it for the lore, pretty much. I actually think that, like, I sat and I don't think I've read a Battletome properly in a very long while, but I thought it'd be really fun to kind of do that now with the new edition and sort of go through it with you guys. But I genuinely think there's a lot of stuff in here that is really fun to get your head around and kind of inspiring for building armies and painting characters and having fun with the game. I don't necessarily think I'm going to build a full army of these. I'll get Skaven Tide painted. I'll get the Path to Glory painted in particular, but it'll be nice to just have it there and then have the book, obviously, for when I want to dive into a little bit of lore. I will say, again, just like with the core rulebook for Age of Sigmar 4th edition, I think they've done a really good job of presenting the information in a way that is digestible and interesting and gives you the flavor of a faction without overwhelming you. It would have been nice to, again, see maybe some more stories, particularly throughout. But I think in general, they've done a really good job with the lore and the background. It was certainly fascinating, and I certainly learnt a lot more about the Skaven in Age of Sigmar than I had previously known. Obviously knew a lot about them from Warhammer Fantasy days, but I've not necessarily explored them in the Mortal Realms. And so having a look at the Skaven as they are now has been really fun. I love the idea of Blight City and the way that that's built on like this shelf of warpstone that is continually rickety because they are just haphazardly building all over the top of it, and then terrible things happen. And so huge sections of it collapse. That was really fun. There's also a really cool story in here that caught my attention. Around the Ideneth Deepkin. I wonder if I can find it. It was something about the... was it that one? No, it's not that one. There's a story in here about the Ideneth Deepkin where they burrow through the realms. And in doing so, they hit like an ocean, and that starts to send the water surging through the realms and into Blight City, and like washes away a huge portion of the population and like their stable lodgings. And it reveals the Ideneth Deepkin to the rest of the mortal realms because their entire ocean is drained effectively, which I thought was absolutely hilarious and very, very Skaven. And so that was really fun to see that pop up in there. There's stories in here somewhere. It was something about Norholes. But yeah, I'm sure you can find it for yourself when you dive into this book. But there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about the new lore within these Battletomes. If you've got the Skaven one, please let me know what you think about it. I'd love to hear your comments on it all. Do you like the new Battletome style? Do you think they've done a good job with it? Do you think they could learn something from ages past in codexes and army books? There's the story. It's on page 51. Go and give it a read. But yeah, I think they managed to nail the flavour of the Skaven, and I can't wait to see what they do with the Stormcast Eternals, who are an army that I really, really enjoy. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will be back in the near future with another video looking at the rules and more for the Skaven in the new Battletome. But yeah, that's where we are for now. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I shall move on and get ready for another video. Thank you very much, and bye for now.